What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online broadcast in the world for fathers and dads that is sponsored by Dad Central and also sponsored by Dove Men Care, the only one that Dove Men Care sponsors online in the world. And I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And we're broadcasting live on Black Canada Talking on August 1st, a very special August 1st, 2021, because today is Emancipation Day, officially the first time it is being celebrated right across this country. So I want to say thank you to everyone who did make this a reality, especially people like Rosemary Sadler and Dr. Wander Thomas Bernard, also people like Louis Marsh, Ita Sadu, a number of individuals. We could spend the whole rest of this program just listing names of people who have contributed, but want to say thank you so much. And it is now a national day in Canada, many years. And that has something to do with our guest today, but I just want to, before we get back to that, say Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians an opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And also we showcase Black Canadians that are doing their thing on this platform. So today, no better person at this juncture in Black Canadian history to have on than Robert Small. He has revolutionized the celebration of Black History Month in Canada through his art for over a quarter of a decade, folks. Over a quarter of a decade. His art has been featured in a poster he creates called Legacy. It's distributed annually, and the poster has educated millions about the history, contributions, and accomplishments of African Canadians. He's a self-taught artist who has merged his artistic talent skills as an entrepreneur and teaching degree to demonstrate the power and art of art and conviction. He has many historical accomplishments in both 2007 and 2021. His artwork was displayed in banks across Canada and the only African Canadian artist to accomplish this. For over 10 years, his art has been featured on the side of a building in downtown Toronto. In the era of success being measured by visibility and social platforms, he maintains a vibrant presence there, as well as with media clips on major television outlets that have been viewed over 100,000 times. During his career, he has been interviewed by such major media outlets as the Toronto Star, the Toronto Sun, CBC, City TV in Toronto, and Rogers. With all these accomplishments, his artwork has even permeated the transit system in Toronto by being displayed as part of an anti-racism campaign, which is fantastic, in over 20 subway stations on the Toronto transit system. Along with these accomplishments, his artwork continues to be the centerpiece of Black History Month celebrations by appearing in thousands of schools across Canada. He'll be historically remembered as one of the most significant visual artists of the last two decades, forget the last 2 decades, ever in this country. And the future offers more accomplishments to come. What makes Robert a Black entrepreneur to watch in the future of merging art, education, Black history, and emerging trends. He has ambitions to create a Black education or Alexa skills, expanding the presence on the present catalog of Afrocentric activity, books for children, writing a book, and creating an NFT artwork. Very nice. So you know what? The future is bright, and especially today on Emancipation Day. Let us welcome Robert Small. What is up, Robert?
Nothing much, man. How you keeping?
Outstanding. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good, especially after you read a bio that I wrote myself, right? So
that is an outstanding bio. No, but it's the truth.
I know it's the truth. I can admit that I wrote it, but it's actually the truth. Nothing there is blown out of proportion, right?
Well, so. No, and I have been blessed to know Robert long time. I don't even know where we first met, but it's been a while that we've
known each other. Yeah, it has been a while. I don't even know when. Right?
I don't even know when, but I'd say we've at least known each other minimum 20 years.
Yeah, I think it was a community type of interaction. I don't know you from universities or anything like that, right? But Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. And folks,
Louis Marsh. I don't know where I met Louis either, right?
yeah, and
But
actually,
it was a community cell.
well, we have to hail out. It is Louis Marsh and Wanda Senator Bernard's birthday today.
Oh, well, there you go.
So both of them. So happy birthday to two pillars in Black Canadian culture and Black Canadian history. So big time. Thanks very much. So Robert, many people may not know you. So for those who don't, let's get a little background about yourself, where you grew up, life, school, before the world of art just springboarded onto your life. So share a little bit with your audience, with our audience, about you.
Well, okay. Well, when I grew up here in Toronto, Ontario, right? And I grew up predominantly in Scarborough, actually, right? I was born in Flemington Park, but I never mentioned that because it makes it seem like I was there for a good portion of my life. I was there for like a hot minute when I was like in junior kindergarten in grade 1. Life was so rough like that, right? So I don't mention it because I don't even remember it totally. Right. But the only thing I do remember about living there is the fact that I was surrounded by other Black kids. Right. So when my parents decided to move on up and they left there and we moved to North York, it was so funny because the drastic difference came to light very quickly. Because I can remember I had I got introduced to these white kids, and I think it was probably like 9 or 10 at the time, or a little bit younger. And I still had Flemington Park in me. That Flemington Park 40 years ago, right? So they asked me what I wanted to do for fun. So I said, well, okay, why don't we throw rocks at cars? Right?
Oh boy!
So they looked at me and go, and I just I can remember this because it was always traumatic, their response, right? So I picked up this rock and I threw it at a car that was passing, right? And they looked at me shocked, right? So I quickly found out that I need to acclimate to the white suburbs now, right? So because their version of fun and ours was totally different, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
So but quite frankly, I had a really great childhood, even growing up, even though I was one amongst many, right? And stuff like that. But racial issues did raise their head. Both in my favor and not in my favor. Obviously, because I was ostracized and didn't have a lot of Black friends around me, but but it was more funny things that occurred because of it. Because in the primary school I was in, going from grade 1 to 6, there was about 6 Black kids in the whole school, and 3 of them were triplets. Right?
What?
Yeah.
What?
So
okay.
Yeah, 3 of them were triplets, and they were in the grade ahead of me. Right? So. And Anthony, who was the really the strongest kid in the school in grade 6, period, bar none, right? So Anthony was the strongest kid in the school in grade 6, and I was the only Black kid in grade 5, and the other 2 Black kids were significantly younger. So when Anthony, Faye, and Andre left, half of the Black school population left with them.
Yes.
So when I graduated to grade 6, people automatically thought I was the strongest kid in the school because I was Black like Anthony, right? So consequently, I was able to ride off of that for half of the year, But then when the later half of the year began, people started thinking, "Is Robert really that tough?" and everything. So I got into a few fights in the later part when the fear element started waning, right? Because people knew that Anthony could beat up everybody. But I was kind of riding off of his coattails for when I entered grade 6, and people thought I was the strongest. So I said, "Yeah, I am, right?" You all back on the ranch. I was kind of faking it for a certain amount of the time, right? So
it's interesting. I can relate a bit because the public school I went to, there were only 3 Blacks, and
yeah.
one of the gentlemen left when we were in grade 3. And it's funny how you meant grade 6 getting into fights. Actually, grade 6 was the last time I got in a physical fight because there was a gentleman. I remember his name, Carlos Teixeira. He was the bully of the school. And he called me the N-word on the day of our Christmas party, and I beat him down.
Yeah.
And I didn't get in any trouble. So I just so funny, relatable. Let me ask, we'll move a little bit ahead here. If I'm correct, you went to university in Windsor, correct?
Yeah, I went to the University of Windsor, yes.
How?
But also just touching upon like capping off on that, like black males, fighting and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, consequently, I think that we do have to think about like male seasoning and stuff, because people say, "Oh, don't fight," right? But you almost realize the importance of not getting into a fight by being in one, right? Because you know firsthand that you could get really hurt if you engage in a fight, and if you find that lesson early in life, like, you'll stay away from it, because you know that, hey, you can be beating the crap out of this guy, but all he needs is just one lucky punch and you're on the ropes.
Exactly.
Right? And even though, like, I kind of played down my fighting career, but I didn't stop it. I think I stopped like when in grade 8, right? Okay. Like, actively fighting people, because I that's what I lost, right? Like, I conclusively lost, right? To the point where this white guy is on top of me, and like, I couldn't get him off him, but he had a weight advantage, right? So I always quelled myself with that, saying that the only reason you won is because he had a weight advantage, right? But but I totally lost that one, and that was when my fighting career ended, right? So, well,
something I did not know, you had a fight career, so
fight career,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
Let's talk about Windsor.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to go to University of Windsor, and how did it impact you then, and does it still impact you now, those years you spent at Windsor?
Yeah. Funny I should say that, because there's some people in the comments would say my fight career didn't stop. now that you mentioned the University of Windsor, but that's another story, right?
All right.
But no. And your question was how it impacted me, Seth?
Yeah. Well, why did you decide to go to university in Windsor, and how and the impact it had on you then, and does it still have an impact on what you're doing today?
Oh yeah, it definitely has. I think that I really didn't start becoming the person that I am now until I went to the University of Windsor, right? That kind of, when I went to York University at first. And then I transitioned to University of Windsor. I went to York University for half of a year. It was a condensed year, and then I transferred to the University of Windsor. And really, the only reason I went for a condensed year. Yeah, I'm hearing echo. You?
I'm good on my end.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know why that's happening, but anyways, yeah. So I had a condensed year, and I went to the University of Windsor. And when I went to the University of Windsor, the reason I went there was pretty immature, because I felt like, that I went down for a sports weekend.
Yes. Okay, hold on. There may be many people that may not know what that is.
Yeah.
Or was.
Sport, right? For them.
Yeah, so if you can be the educator that you are.
Okay. Well, sports weekend, back then, you actually played sports, and another university would be invited to play against each other. So, London, Ontario's university, Western,
yeah,
stuff like that, Waterloo, they would all come down to Windsor, as well as they would have sports weekends too. And consequently, every university would have a sports weekend for the Caribbean students. Then there'd be a party on the Saturday, and it would be a really good time, right? Because you get introduced to other universities, and then we would go to other universities, So yeah, so I'll have to quell myself, because I'm going to start getting into many stories, and I won't be talking about myself. But basically, I went down there for 1 year when I was at York University. My friend Dennis, who I was partying like a madman with, and it was basically my brother from another mother, and still is until this very day. We were having a really great time with each other, going out and partying and this, that, and the other. So we decided to go down for sports weekend. We come back from that weekend, and I go, yeah, Dennis, man, I think I'm going to probably go to Windsor next year, right? Because I wanted to have a real university experience. I didn't feel I was having that at York University, basically going to university and coming home. So he came back like a few days later, and he said that he thinks that he might go too, right? So we went down there together. So I still remember that trip, us taking down the 401, down to Windsor have a truck with all of our stuff in the back, and it's clanging and stuff like that because it's not properly packed, and you're wondering if something's going to get broken. So it was really fun. So when I actually got to Windsor in the 4 years that I spent there, it was a definite learning experience because, quite frankly, there are good memories, there are bad memories, right? But they're all growing memories, mm-hmm. right? All the people that I went to University of Windsor with, we look back on those years fondly and stuff like that.
Nice.
And it was really, and we all know that going to Windsor, we were almost trying to duplicate a different world when we were down there, right?
Okay.
We were watching that show, and then we had a jammy jam.
Oh, are there any pictures of this?
No.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I don't think people weren't taking pictures of parties all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, but so between that and there was my DJ friend Ron who told his children when we had a party in the house, like literally the floor was going up and down, right? And I told Ron, stop, man, because the floor is like going to break. And there was an old house that we're having this party in because we were like the Delta tribe. We were trying to bring this. Yeah, so it's another story, right?
Oh,
so I went to his house a few years ago, and he goes, Rob, tell my kids I wasn't lying, that I was holding a party, DJing it, and the floor was going up and down, right? And I said, yeah, well, that's actually true. Right. And I go, oh, I thought it was lying. Right. So, yeah. But there was a social element, but there's also the positive element because Detroit was right there.
Yeah.
So you had the history there. You had Louis Farrakhan coming on the occasion. So I can remember going to hear him speak.
Wow.
Public Enemy came to perform in Windsor, Ontario. I can remember Charles, Chris, Dennis, and myself like dressing the same and going.
This is why I wish there were pictures.
Yeah, I don't want pictures of that, right?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, because I can remember Charles, and I'll bust out his last name, Charles Sr., right?
Yes.
I remember him criticizing me about what I was wearing that night, and I was wondering, why is he going off about that, right? And, then I seen actually a picture of what I was wearing that night. And I go, oh, now I know. Yeah. It's like, what was I wearing a sweater, right?
Oh, my God. That's good.
Yeah.
Good. So, well, let's go on because,
in Windsor, you're introduced to Black ideologies and pro-Black movement. And,
yes.
Thought, and there's a lot of debate about that on our campus. And I was involved with the Black Student Association there. So that really catapulted me into what I am today, right? So.
Fantastic. I think we need to get all your posse together and host a Memories of Windsor afternoon or evening.
Oh, gosh, that would go on a week, right? Anybody that goes to Windsor, we all know that you can't talk to us about Windsor because we'll talk about it all day, right?
Okay. So let me ask, when did art enter your journey?
Art entered my journey very early in life. I'll say the reality, talking about just a person, but then as a Black person is another story. Like when I first entered my life, I used to read a lot of comic books when I was younger, and I still do to this day. But when I started reading comic books when I was like 7, 8, I just started trying to draw what I seen because I was very interested in how the artists created these images. So so really I got into art like with the wanting to become a comic book artist, right? But when you're 18 and your Caribbean parents ask you what you want to do what you want to do for a career, the last thing you say is that you want to go to New York City to draw Spider-Man fighting the goblin. Right? That's
not going to go over.
Yeah, so I knew that wasn't going to go over. So even though that was in the back of my mind to say, by the time the answer came out of my life, for some reason I said lawyer, right? So yeah, so I originally went to the University of Windsor to become a lawyer, but I graduated there with a degree in sociology and criminology.
Yeah.
So that's how my art came into fruition as just a person. But as a Black male, my first experience of how race interacted with my drawings was I was actually going to draw a Black character called the Falcon, right? And when I was I think it was 14 or 15, and I thought that, hey, this is going to be easy because the Falcon's Black like me, so it should be easy. So when I started drawing him, everything, his eyes looked okay, but when I started drawing his nose came out straight. And I looked at it and I go, well, that's not how his nose looks. So I tried drawing it again. It came out slightly different, but it was still straight, right? And then I started wondering, how come, I can't draw what I know to be true type of thing, right? So consequently, until this very day, so at that time, I even became aware of that. It's embarrassing that as a Black person, I can't draw a Black nose or a Black lips. I'm still trying to make them smaller and stuff. So even now, until this very day, I tell parents that, look, you know what? If your child actually draws a picture that looks like they're trying to capture the broadness of their nose and the width of their lips, then their self-esteem is probably on track, right? But if you see them drawing a picture of themselves and it clearly the attributes that they're drawing look more Caucasian than they do Black, you have to step in, because that's just a sign and a half that they're imagining themselves to be something that they're not. Right?
Right. Good stuff. So you got into art. When did the legacy poster series, what's the history behind that?
Oh, okay. Well, that's another thing. So I originally started when I got out of university, I was still hyped up on my experience at University of Windsor, and I had to pay off my student debt, right? So I said, well, why don't I sell my artwork? But I was selling prints of my artwork, and they weren't necessarily selling as much as I wanted them to. So I decided that, hey, why don't I, for every print that I sell, why don't I give away something if someone buys $20 worth of my art or $30 worth of my art? So I said, why don't I create a poster? And at that time, Prince had the Black Album. Right?
I just to know, I actually have a vinyl copy of that.
I have a vinyl copy, but you have to have a specific type. I already Googled it.
I got the specific type.
You do? Oh, okay.
I have the specific type. Yes, and believe it or not, I bought it at a store. There's a store in Toronto, no longer just called Vortex Records. Used to be on Dundas, just east of Parliament. And believe it or not, I bought it for $5.
Oh wow! Yeah. Yeah, okay. Because that's another story.
Another story, but I'll let you back to yours. Go ahead.
I'm still not letting my version go, just in case. Right?
I'm not letting. No, mine. No. That's not getting away from me. No.
Even though I know mine isn't legit, right? So
it's okay.
But needless to say, So what I decided to do, Punch had the Black Album, so I said, well, why don't I put out the Black poster, right? And I said, nah, that doesn't sound right. The Black poster, Black Album, So I said, well, why don't I call it I decided to create a poster that would feature my artwork. So I was wondering what to call it. So first I thought about calling it the Black poster. And I thought, well, why don't I call it the Black History poster? Then I had the bright idea of saying, well, why don't I call it the official Black History Month poster? Because that sounds proud. It sounds very assertive, you know. So why don't I do that? Because at the time there wasn't really any poster out there, you know, that that was going to be released annually, you know. So I said, well, if there's nobody else doing it, then what the heck? Why not, right?
Right.
You know. But it was more so my like youthful enthusiasm that was wanting me to call it the official Black History Month poster, not any like attempt to supervent anybody. But gradually over the initial years, people thought that I was trying to control Black History Month and everything like this.
Yes.
So you remember those days.
Oh, right? Yes. I remember those interesting conversations. Let's put it that way. With people that will stay nameless.
Yeah, we do. We have to say that. Is that your cue to me not to say their name?
You can do whatever you want. I'm just steering the ship. You're driving the ship today.
Yeah, okay. You're just making sure that you said that you didn't want me to mention their name, right? So
it's total. Actually, ironically, one of the people's names we mentioned before we went live. So
yeah, well, there you go. I remember I didn't say it, you did, right?
Okay.
But needless to say, like, I'll tell you, I've never been in such a foolish discussion in my life, right? You know, because if I can take over Black History Month with a poster, goddamn, we're in trouble. Right? Like, that's a comment on what you're doing if some 25-year-old guy or 26 can come out of the blue and make a poster and take over Black History Month, right? You know, and I just used to laugh about it, but it got to a point, right? But it was serious, right? Because this person and some other people were always going on about it. Like there were times where I would go into schools, and the person barely knew me, but people would this one person would talk about my posters very adamantly, like negatively, even though the person they're talking to didn't even know me from a hole in the ground, right? You know, so
I respect both of you. It was disappointed that is part of the journey. Let me put it that way.
Well, not really, you know, because you know what, they foolishly elevated me and made me more important than I really was at the time, right? Because they were talking about my poster not being the official, but people looked at it and said, "Hey, that's really good. God damn, maybe that is the official one."
It got you publicity in the eyes and minds of people that had no idea who you were.
Exactly, and it made me, and actually me calling it that actually made me like a player in the whole thing because one, like people were talking about it, making this controversy, and there were people actually started looking for me. Yes. And wondering, well, what, you know, wanting to see for themselves. Then they looked at this poster that looked like this and said, "God damn, maybe that is the official poster, right?" Yep. Yep. Because it's better, because it was better than what the other people were making, right? You know, and along that journey, quite frankly, the same person, I can remember, like, these are stories that people don't know, right? And the same person, even though being Black, aligned themselves with like a white feminist group, and the TDSB paid the white feminist to make a Black History poster. And then she took all the money and gave that person and the association they represented at the time the posters to sell on the street, right? And I'm thinking, I'd have to be dead to allow someone that would allow that to happen to be the figurehead for Black history in my mind, right? Because not only did I think that was like almost treasonous, right? But it was like an insult. Like, here you are, the TSB is giving another white person, a white group, the money, like $5,000 to make a poster and design it when it really looked bad on top of that. But they wouldn't give me $5,000. And they wouldn't give the other person who's Black too $5,000 directly, but they gave them posters to sell individually, right? Against me. And I'm like going, you must be insane, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other instance, I went to the city of Toronto at the time two black people were in charge of the recreational of Toronto City recs and stuff, right? And they weren't getting any attention to the poster that they made before that much, right? Because the only reason that they were getting attention, like during the time that I was promoting the poster, because I was calling it the official Black History Month poster. So people, when they were looking for it, or they see me on TV and I was calling it that, they weren't expecting that I was making it out of the basement of my house, right? You know, that the official Black History Month poster is being made by one individual guy. They were thinking that it was created by an association, or they were thinking that it was created by the city of Toronto. So they would phone those places looking for the poster that they just heard on the TV. So needless to say, I can remember going to the city of Toronto. I said, well, why is the city of Toronto making a poster? And this was all 20 some odd years ago, not now, right? But why is the city of Toronto making a poster just for Black History Month and selling it? Why? Is the city of Toronto raising money to pay their bills or something? You know, like, and if they're making a poster just for Black History Month, why are they not making it for Asian Heritage Month, Women's History Month, no other month, but they're only making it for Black History Month, right? You know, and I seen it, and the black people at the time didn't have an answer for that, because they knew that the only reason they were making it for Black History Month because they knew that would be something that's easy to do, right? So consequently, I just said, you know, the city of Toronto could be doing a mentoring day program for the whole month of February. The city of Toronto has so many resources, and you're like the biggest thing you're doing for Black History Month is the attempt to make a poster. Like, for what objective? Why? Right? So after that, I said, why don't you just why don't you just buy the poster that I'm creating? Align the city of Toronto with me, because it makes sense. I'm an artist, so I'm using the poster to promote my artwork. The city of Toronto is a city, and you're creating a poster? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? But needless to say, they also, and going back to the elders conversation we we're having earlier, they also refused to help me. And, you know, it's funny seeing some of these elders now, you know, because they celebrate my poster now. But I can remember when I was young and they were like 27, 28, and I asked them for help. They totally refused, right? And it's unfortunate. But the one thing I will say, and people's names I will drop, are those that did support me in a way, at a time where my self-esteem really needed their help. And that was Gene Augustine, for sure. Gene Augustine asked me to come up to Ottawa and show the poster that profile that she was on to the Prime Minister of Canada. You know, and that was like a big self-esteem boost, because at the time I said, well, hell, if Gene Augustine is validating what I do, why should I give a rat's ass what these other people think, right? Like, who are they compared to her, right? You know, and then, then Hamlin Grange at the time, he actually gave me enough inspiration, really, I never told him this, but to leave my job and just go straight on into my artwork. I can remember one time he had a conversation with me, because I was working at the YMCA, at the Black Achievers at the YMCA, and he was my supervisor at the time. And I was the director of the YMCA Black Achievers program. But, you know, so it's a program where you mentor, where we paired like Black professionals with Black youth. So consequently, I was the director of the program. And when people would talk to me about it, like, they expected me to really feel good about being the director, because I was director of a Black program at like 31, right? But behind the scenes, I kind of felt, well, it's not really my program. Like, I don't own it, right? Like, I'm just the Black face to it, really, right? Like, the YMCA was doing great things with it before me. And when I was doing it, I was able to do some great things during that time, you know. But when I left, like, the only title that I'm going to have after I leave here is my name. And I got more pride. I was more proud about people calling me the creator of the official Black History Month poster than I did the other thing. And one time when I went to lunch with Hamlin Grange, we were talking about all that, and specifically the poster, and he told me something that I repeat to people nowadays. And he asked me, like, okay, so what's your end game? Like, what's your escape plan? So at the time, I was kind of like, sensitive about my poster because some people were telling me it looks like crap, right? So I didn't know how to take what he was saying. And so I just go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, the problem is in our community, Robert, is that some people wrap their identity around what they do. And when it's time to leave or when it's time to pass it on, they can't do it because their identity is wrapped around that one thing, that association or that one thing that they create. But you have to position what you're doing as something that can be sold to somebody else because you might want to get out of it. And I can remember riding the subway home and thinking about what he said, right? And consequently, those words stick to me to this very day because even though I enjoy doing the poster, it's really is me, but the poster itself is a product, right? So, and consequently, that's why I always think about it as something to be handed down, right?
Nice. Very, very, very nice. So let's getting a little bit of echo here. Okay, I think it's gone now. So let's talk about some of the great moments you've had along the legacy poster journey, some of the highlights. I did mention some of them in the intro, but what are some other things and what are some proud moments you've had with this poster? You did mention when Jean Augustine invited you up to Ottawa, and also I've got to hail up Jean Augustine also on Emancipation Day, one of the key people that's made this day a reality in Canada. But what are some of the key moments along the journey that you can remember and are not wanting to will never forget? Sorry.
That was one because my older daughter, she was like 1 year old at the time. She actually came up to Ottawa with me at the time. So it's really powerful for me to see pictures of her and John Chrétien like holding her and stuff like that. So that was memorable. The other things that were memorable during this poster was when Master T was having electric circuits and everything like that, and he was nice enough during Black History Month to showcase some of my artwork, and that was something that was really happened when it was really formative years of creating my art and doing my poster. Then with OPSU, who's been a sponsor of my poster for several years, they've been putting my artwork on the side of their building at Yonge and Wellesley for the last 10 years. They've been doing that, right? So yeah, so even now, there's a piece of my artwork on the side of their building now at Yonge and Wellesley. If you were to walk east from the corner of Yonge and Wellesley, you'd see there that picture on the side of the wall. And the Bank of Montreal, even last year, the Bank of Montreal distributed my poster, a miniaturized version of my poster, to all the branches across Canada. And in 2007, they distributed my actual poster in all their branches across Canada too. So there have been a lot of powerful moments that I'll never forget.
Oh, well, congratulations to you on that. And for people who don't know, OPSU is the Ontario Public Service Employees Union. And earlier on, Robert mentioned TDSB is the Toronto District School Board, some of the acronyms, because we have a worldwide audience. So I just want to make sure they're not left. What are these acronyms? What are these things going on here?
Yeah. And that instance with the Toronto District School Board, they did that. That happened like 20 years ago.
Yes.
Right? But for the longest time, and even now, like the Toronto District School Board have been powerful allies of mine, right?
Wonderful.
But there was one guy there that kept on blocking me that you know who you are. How you like me now?
You know what? Sometimes success is the best revenge.
Well, it is because you don't have to do anything, right? And people know that you're talking about them, but you're not dropping them, type of thing.
Right. This is good.
And meanwhile, I'm doing it playfully, but it's sad, really, right? And it's a lesson because, going back to it all, like and elders and everything, I remember, like I mentioned, Gene Augustine, Hamlin Grange, but I'll also have to give it up to Linrod Douglas, who was the CEO of Black Pages at the time, right?
Yep.
And once again, he entered my life in a really formative time too, because I started working for Black Pages when I was like 26, and Black Pages is a directory that lists all the black businesses at the time. And wow, it was like 1995. And remember, and Black Pages were having, and I haven't seen this yet matched, but Black Pages had a Black Business Week when they had, from Monday to Sunday, they had events for the Black community from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 or 7 o'clock at night every day, right? And this was like 25 years ago,
right?
And I was working for them straight out of the university, writing off of Louis Farrakhan in my mind, right? So I can remember one time Linrod and Millicent Redway, they, so Jesse Jackson came down to Toronto, right?
Yeah.
I was there bringing them down, and we were living high off the hog at that point, right? Like we really thought that things were going great, right? So I can remember them asking me when I was 26, 27 if I wanted wine. I go, wine, Millicent? It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, right? But yeah, but it was fun times, But at that time, like I didn't know some of the skills that would catapult me into who I am now. And those were introduced to me by Linrod Douglas, who at the time, I was advertising in Black Pages, my artwork. And one day he asked me, well, Robert, do you know how to work in like Photoshop? And I go, no, I haven't even touched like a computer. Like I have a computer at home, but no, I don't know any graphics programs. And he goes, no, it's pretty simple. And he showed me, and he asked me to come down to the Black Pages office that was downtown Toronto and showed it to me. And so I said, yeah, I could do something like this. Pretty easy, right? So then then I became employed as the graphic designer of Black Pages. So I created, one of the Black Pages for that year. I actually have it on my bookshelf, right?
Nice.
But, so then they pretty much all showed me, and Linrod really did like help me develop into the person I am now, put me on the path to being the person I am now, because I kind of said, well, goddamn, like this brother just like literally, goes to work by coming from going upstairs to downstairs, right? Because they were operating out of their house, right? And I said, yeah, that's the type of job I want in my life, right? So in the original days, I was thinking about how to become a cheap version of Linrod Douglas, right? So
there you go.
But eventually the key is not being a version of somebody else, but a first-rate version of yourself, right? But him and various other Black men and women really helped develop me into who I'd eventually become, right? So
nice. Well, for those who don't know, you can tell Rob and I go way back, and it's very rare that him and I don't have a conversation where social political commentary comes up. So we have to get into a little bit, and we're going to have some good conversation on some topics that Robert wanted to chat about. And of course, we are coming out of a pandemic, and it is Emancipation Day. So Robert, what does, in your mind and your heart, what does free look like in the present era after a pandemic? What does free look like for Black Canadians, in your opinion, on Emancipation Day 2021?
Well, I think what it looks like is a lot different than it has in the past. I think that in the past we had the luxury of just thinking about Emancipation Day in respect to the past, and thinking about how like hard it was for people who were enslaved physically to get through that, and celebrating our freedom that we're not like that in the past. But now, after the pandemic, I don't think we have the luxury of sitting around just thinking about the past. We have to think about really hard about how we're presently enslaved in the present, right? And being partially enslaved in the present means that we're not trying to actually do what it is that we're really supposed to do. And certain things are doing for our community unapologetically. And consequently, with the pandemic, it brought forward a lot of issues that were pertinent to the Black community, and that the Black community has to take an active role in solving. I think prior to the pandemic, we were bludgeoned to death with award shows and and entertainment masked as social activism and stuff like that, thinking that but now with the pandemic showing really hard problems in the Black community that the pandemic just amplified, whether it be food insecurity, whether it be health issues that our community specifically face. Now you've seen a rollout of money from the federal, provincial, and mostly federal government, right? And programs on the municipal level that's directly aimed at the Black community. And they're no longer looking for like a white savior to be a part of it. They're actually telling like Black organizations and Black individuals to be parts of these programs because we need you specifically to tell us what is the problem and how to solve it. Well, and so we don't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines anymore.
Do you feel? I mean, put it this way. What do you think is holding us back, especially after a pandemic? What is holding us back?
Well, you know what? I think the one thing that's holding us back as the collective is the fact that we haven't had the practice of working together. Like that's a skill that you develop. It's not something that's just assumed, right? It's kind of like when some females, right, complain about a guy not knowing what to do in the house, right? But I go that look, if you married a guy that lived in an apartment all his life, and you lived in the house, like he might not know the dynamics of mowing the lawn because he hasn't lived in the house where he had to mow the lawn. So if you've ever lived in the house, that you have to mow the lawn like every second week at the very most during the summer, right? Because if you don't, it'll grow incredibly. That'll be out of control. So then you'd really have to spend more time. But if the guy lived in the house, how's he going to know that? You're assuming that he knows how to work a lawnmower, but why would he know how to operate a lawnmower? He's never had to before. Mm-hmm. So consequently, the same thing holds true. So you're having these expectations of him that it's not like he doesn't want to, but he's just not unaware how. And with respect to the Black community, it's something similar that we know that we should be able to work together, but working with Black people is a skill, right? The same way that if you're working with handicapped people, if you're working with deaf people, if you're working with like Aboriginals, if you're working with women, like you don't throw like someone working with women that has a mindset that's anti-women. You just don't, right? You don't throw someone together with people who have learning disabilities when they say inappropriate language about them, right? So consequently, you don't throw just any Black person to work with Black people. Right?
So let me go. We're going to go deeper.
That sounds simple when I say that. But it's rampant that there are just some Black people that are ill-equipped to work with other Black people. They don't have any experience, and they wouldn't if working with Black people was an actual job that they had to be interviewed for, they would never get the job, right? Because they just don't have the experience working with Black people, and they don't have the experience of proof that their work with Black people has actually borne fruit, right? So if you ask any of the presidents of these Black organizations what history they have working with Black people and how can they say that they're successful working with Black people, they wouldn't be able to answer you.
So then why is it a lot like, would you say we're our own worst enemies?
Well, yeah, we are, and to compliment those people, the people that do become president of these associations, they often step into voids that people that know better, like us as well, and me included, don't step into when we know
Yes,
that.
I think you bring up a very interesting point. There are so many people I know that are talented,
Yeah.
truly talented. And when I tell them about why don't you get involved? No way, man. That's like going into a minefield. And
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate that there is a large amount of people that could really make a positive difference to a lot of these organizations won't go there because the organizations aren't, let's just say, efficient.
Yeah. So that's code for blank, blank, blank.
Right? Just efficient, right? Like there's so many, like, and it's, I talk to so many people say, you know what? I did my time in these organizations. It was a mess. I'm done.
Yeah. And
they signed out. They've checked out.
yeah, and when I say these things, I'm not taking myself out of it either, right? And I was them, but it also includes me. Like if someone asked me to be president of a Black organization, I'd say, well, no, I have so much going on, like individually, that I wouldn't be able to take on that, right? But that, even though that might be an excuse to some, but in reality, I also because I'm in control of what I do, I'm not disappointed, right? So yes, I couldn't become a president of an association and stuff like that, but then the people, but you have to report back to a board that might not necessarily agree with your politics or your approach. Mm-hmm. And the last thing that the reason that I wouldn't become involved, because I've been working in the Black community for basically 30 years. Okay. Like directly with the Black community.
Yep.
And I can list off the results of what I've accomplished in the Black community. So it's not like me just beating my chest or feeling good about it, right? Like I distribute a poster that I create with my own money and distribute it across the province. But these guys, some of these may get millions of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, and you don't know who the hell they are, right? So I just have to laugh about it because the reason you don't know who they are after all this time is because they just don't know how to get out to the Black community, right? And that's the real reason why you don't know about their services, because if they knew with the money that they're getting, they'd be able to do something. They'd be able to create something, right?
What do you feel, since we're going there, what do you feel about the whole funding ecosystem?
Well, we can't. You know what? Like with the funding aspect, right? Like I think I noticed at one point when I was doing the poster, I was my third year doing the poster, I was 28. And Loblaws dared to sponsor my poster at that time, right?
Yep.
Prior to that, I only had Black organizations sponsoring my poster. Mm-hmm. Loblaws gave me the money, they didn't care, right? But the response from people in the community was, "Oh, you're big time now, eh? Loblaws sponsored, Loblaws sponsored you and everything, right?"
Yeah.
And I'm like going, and I knew that that Loblaws gave me the money. They didn't even think about it. It was no big deal to them at all. But amongst the community, it was seen as like some big stepping on up type of moment, right? And if that had gone to my head, like I would have been going after sponsors from top to bottom, right? And I think that when you get sponsorship money from different corporations and everything, it does create the element that you're responsible to them, right? Whether they say it or not. Like, even though at that time, even though I got sponsorship from Loblaws and they didn't really tell me who I should put on, who shouldn't, or everything like that, I still felt like a certain responsibility to the fact that they sponsored me, right? It didn't make me do it differently, but I did kind of like be careful about what I said, right? But you also have the response. But at the time, I also felt a responsibility to the Black community to keep my poster going, right? So I wouldn't just flip off my mouth and jeopardize that either, right? But I think with the funding models that are out today, like I kind of question whether they're pursuing the actual goal or the money is the goal, right? Because oftentimes they'll because if you're pursuing a goal, in my mind, if you're getting money to create like a center or anything like that, or a program for example, like you'll mention, okay, well, these are the details of what the program's going to do, and we need this amount to make it happen. And when the Black community asks you, well, hey, brother, what are you going to do with that money? You can say details. Well, on Monday, these programs are going to be running. On Tuesday, these programs are going to be running. On Wednesday, these programs are going to be running. Thursday, we're going to rent it out. Friday, we're going to rent out. Saturday, we're going to rent it out between 6 and 7 o'clock. So shut up and don't ask me about what I'm going to do with the money. Right? Like, go screw yourself, right? Because you already have a prepared answer for what's going to happen on every day. And both you and I know have done programming. I could make up, if someone were to give me $250,000, I could make up programming for the whole week right now within 2 hours. I could do
easily,
right? So with these organizations that you ask them that question and they still don't have a clear answer for you, I'm sorry, they don't know what they're doing. Because some of them have been around for 1 or 2 years, and you ask them what they're going to do with the money, and they can't detail it out for you. And the only reason they can't detail, they said, we're going to go into the Black community, ask questions, do a survey, find out. You only do that if you don't know what the hell you're going to do. Right? Because you don't have any experience working in the Black community to know that, hey, the Black community needs entrepreneurship programs. We need for entrepreneurship programs for Black fathers who are having financial issues, for Black mothers who are single. So we should probably have 2 different seminars for them for different reasons, right? Yeah. Then there's international students and Black international students from the Caribbean, predominantly from Jamaica. Then there's the students who are born here and students that were born here, and they need specific types of programs. Like in 5 minutes, I just told you programs that can happen for one day in 5 minutes, right? Just based on entrepreneurship.
Yep.
And anybody that's done programming in the Black community would always say that what I just said is valid, right?
Absolutely.
So why would I have to do a fact-finding mission based on that, right? Like if I told you I was getting funding for $100,000 to do what I just said in 5 minutes, would you question me on anything I just said?
No need to.
There would be no need, but there would be a need if I said to you, well, we're going to be doing a survey, and after the survey's done, we're going to do a fact-finding mission. We're going to make a report. After the report's done, then we're going to create the programming based on the report. And that's said constantly. And to someone who's worked in the Black community before, these people just don't really know what they're doing.
Well, the disturbing thing about that for me is we're researched out. Right? And the sad thing is, in the time that those research, and hey, people got to do their research, but in the time that you're doing research, people are suffering. Like, we're dealing with day-to-day issues when you're doing surveys. I think, look, if people want to know the challenges in the Black community, either you can go to people like Robert or myself, and there's other people out there, or come on down, give us about 3 or 4 hours, we can show you.
Yeah. And just listen. And if they were just, but the thing about it is they don't know who the players in the Black community are, right? I always say that there's a difference between having the social experience of being Black and working in the Black community, right? Yes, you are Black, right? Yeah. And you've been Black all your life. But that doesn't make you qualified to work in the Black community, because you'll get frustrated very easily, right? And then you think that you're some you're king of the Blacks coming in.
King of the Blacks. That's hilarious. I've heard that one before. Go on. King of the Blacks. Okay.
I made that up a few years ago. I throw it out there sometimes for laughs. Right?
King of the Blacks. Okay.
Right? And that you're coming in, and that all of a sudden, just because you're on the scene, because you're some big wig in the white community, and the white community knows you, you think that coming in as the black savior now, because now you're on the case, that things are going to change, right? And lo and behold, 2 years go by or 5 years go by, and nothing's changed. And you thought, and you made all these grandiose promises to the black community, and they don't come into fruition, and you're wondering why. It's like, well, one, you've come from like the Royal Bank, or I should have name dropped corporation just in case I have to go them for funding.
Yeah, you be careful. You be careful who you talk about, okay?
Nothing against the Royal Bank, right?
Okay, RBC, edit, go on.
Yeah, you can edit that out. Right? But jokingly. But no, if you're coming from a white organization, and you might have like a title there, but you don't have a title in the black community that you've earned, right? And consequently, they made a mistake of thinking that because they have they're the director or CEO in a white organization, that is a transferable skill to the black community, and the black community should just bow and like listen to everything you say. And it doesn't happen. It's never happened. And over the 20 years that I've known you, there have always been like important black people coming forward to say that they're on the case, that they're going to do this, that, and the other. And where are they now? And people can test out what I just said. Whenever you hear about a black person saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that, the first question you should ask them: how long have you been working in the black community, in a black or all black organization, and what have you accomplished? Because
show me the receipts.
Exactly. And that's not an off question to ask. If I was going to Royal Bank and I wanted to become the branch manager, what's the first question they're going to ask? What experience do I have? No. They're going to ask me, what experience do I have? What history do I have at the branch? And can I see your references? Yeah. So consequently, any black person that talks to you about they want to create a credit union, they want to do this, they want to create a center, like, okay, if you're going to create a center, what experience do you have in managing a facility that's worth $1 million? What history do you have doing that? Have you hired ground people before? Have you put money aside for the maintenance of that facility? Mm-hmm. Have you projected how much revenue you're going to be having for 5 years in the future? These are questions that a white guy would ask you if you're going for a job, right? So consequently, I shouldn't be seen as hurting your feelings if I ask you those questions. Come on, Ed.
Now look.
Am I lying?
But I'm just saying, you have no experience with this, do you?
Yeah. I can remember specifically, me asking this question of this one guy that had these wanting to do something. I won't say what it is because it'll give it away, right? And he's a nice guy. I don't want to throw him on open street, right? But I asked him, what experience do you have like doing such a venture? And he says, well, I've worked for like 2 years in a similar vein, right? And I go, yeah, but 2 years is one above one. And the first year working anywhere, who would ever say that they're experienced like after working someplace for 1 year, right? So I'm asking this in a group of people, and he's, oh, Robbie, you're hurting his feelings. Like, oh my God, like it's better me hurt his feelings here than he be responsible for like hundreds of black people's future, and he disappoint hundreds of black people, right? By making these grandiose plans and everything. So I would say, quite frankly, that there are organizations, and I would mention the BPA, that have finally come into who they were supposed to be now, really, and doing a lot of programs that are centered towards the Black community, centered towards Black businesses, and they're just like rolling them out. And prior to them rolling them out, I didn't hear the president say that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. She just did it, right? So I'd have to give it up to the president of Black Business Professionals, Nadine Spence, who is spearheading that now, as well as the board, right? So
Nadine Spencer, yeah.
Yeah.
So you somewhat covered this, but I just want to know if there's anything else you want to fill in. So do you feel the explosion of Black groups and funding positive or negative so far, especially in the last 2 years?
Well, you know what? I think it's how can I
To
say
be
it?
determined?
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what? It is to be determined, right? Because it's good. Because I was going to say that it's gotten Black people involved, but then on the negative side of it, as you know, there are some Black people that think that here, like Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. I always make that mistake. Justin Trudeau, announcing money for Black businesses. And the Black guy that does work at Royal Bank, I'm always using Royal Bank as an example, right? Like he thinks that he's not getting in on that money somehow. I'm going, no, like it's for Black businesses. Like he's giving out money to Black organizations, but I think that the average Black person on the street doesn't know or doesn't even care to know that there are Black organizations that the individuals that work there wake up every day working on behalf of just Black people. Mm-hmm. I think that there are some people that don't even know that there's, once again, that there's centers for Black men to come to in order to learn being better fathers, that there's organizations that focus on just immigrant Blacks from Africa and this, that, and the other. Like they're just totally unaware. So when they hear like Trudeau mentioning that, they think that, wasn't there some Black signal that was supposed to go up like the bat signal and we're supposed to be told about it? I go, no, like you're supposed to, the way that you'll know about these Black organizations is becoming involved with them, right? And don't think that there's some clique or nothing like that, because that's not the case. As you would know, Ed, like these Black organizations would welcome 100 Black people to join them tomorrow, even to volunteer or just to be aware of them, period, right? But with us, we have to get involved, and that's something that I think that the pandemic, unfortunately, basically became a cattle prod that stuck us in the back to get us moving to become involved in our community. So that in that respect, it's positive. But in the other respect, I think that people there are some people that have been motivated by the money.
I was just gonna get to that because
and some people seeing it as some last attempt as a retirement plan, right?
Okay. Well, one of the challenges I feel that I'll put it out there. I think a number of Blacks are challenged by one of these three things or a combination of these three things.
Okay.
Trauma, repetition, or symbolism. So what you just said about with these announcements of money coming, mm-hmm. Symbolism, has the money actually got to anybody really?
Not really, no.
Right? So many of us love great symbolism, but when, like you just said a few moments ago, I've got these organizations, this and that, but when you really dig down after the symbolism of the announcement or I'm doing this organization, what are the receipts?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Because the funny thing, and I'm just using this as an example. It's not meant to condemn or condemn or like validate what they do. Well, with the Black Lives Matter Center that they just recently purchased for $8 million, right? A lot of people would say, the city of Toronto says, oh, we're giving $250,000 towards the center, right? But No, I was told that they're giving 250,000 towards programming. That's meant just towards programming. So in other words, that means that the center has to be operational and working and off the ground in order for them to get that 250
money. Yes.
So they haven't got 1 cent from this. They've gotten a promise, like so many other people have gotten promises. But if I was evil Whitey, right, I would make promises too. When I'm sitting there going, oh, you have the center? Oh, how much is it going to? You have to hire let's say two janitors at the very minimal for a place like that. So how much is a janitor going to get? $50,000 a year. $50,000 a year too. That's $100,000 for just two people.
Right there. Right there.
That's $100,000. Then there's a groundskeeper. I have an $8 million. Like how much you're going to spend on that? Then the shoveling the snow, that has to happen, period, right? You can't just let it pile up when you have a center. You have to plow that because you're going to get your ass sued off if someone slips there.
And on top of it, insurance?
For $8 million facility downtown? Right? And consequently, I love, like all power to them and everything, right? But once again, to me, I'm sitting there going, like right off the bat, just those three things that we mentioned, that's $150,000 right there. A year. And that's just to maintain the place. And you need a building manager, someone to coordinate all the events that are going to take place for every day throughout the whole year. So right there, that's $200,000 easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't even gotten to the programs and that and the other. So while we celebrate, these things, we have to really think about the dollars and cents of it all, right? Because the problem that I have with these announcements and the symbolism of it all is there's the symbolism of the victory, but there's also the symbolism of the defeat if it happens, right? Because then people start saying, oh, black people, we can't get together and all this other stuff. But no, there are black people that are together, but oftentimes when these things occur and they don't work out, not saying that this won't work out, but sometimes it's the people that are involved that are the problem because they're ill-equipped to actually do what they're saying they want to do, right? And then we get behind them because of the symbolism, but we don't ask the hard questions that, okay, have you been, in charge of building management? Have you been the executive director of a black organization before? Have you worked at a black organization before? And once again, where are the receipts of that, right? Have you mobilized black people on a large scale other than the people that right? It's one thing for me to mobilize you, Hamlin, a different book list and people that I know. But have I had a wider range between black people that just like me, right? Have I mobilized just the average black person on the street, right? And that's very, very questionable, right? And once again, I feel like it's almost my duty to throw out these questions through your podcast in order for people just to ask.
And I think it's very valid, very important. There seems to be a resistance, and you've mentioned it already, of asking the hard questions. I don't know where it's from. I don't know, because there may be certain individuals that it would rock their boat if the hard questions were asked and attempted to be answered. Would you disagree?
Yeah, it would, because the person asking knows that the person can answer that question, and the person that's receiving it knows that they can't answer the question. And that should be, and if anything, asking the question, these direct questions, it's actually saving them. Because if the questions I just asked you about if you've ever been a building manager before, have you ever been in charge of of staff beyond 2 people. Like,
Yeah.
God damn, like what is that a hard question to ask?
Look, if let's flip the switch. Say this was for a for-profit venture, you better believe those questions
Yeah.
would be asked. But there should be no difference.
Yeah.
There should be no difference whether it's for profit or not for profit.
No, and you know what? Here we go. Here's the real thing. If I was your white boss asking you that question, would you not answer me? Would you get mad if I was your white boss and I asked you those questions for you to get a job? You'd answer them. And you'd answer it and you'd like it. So if I ask you that question, then and you feel resentment towards me because you're seeing a black face similar to mine, you're not worthy to do that. Anything on behalf of black people. And just the fact that you don't want to answer it, just because you feel, oh, Robert, you know, like that's too hard of a question and stuff like that. Like, I don't feel like answering that. Oh, you know, like, yeah, we'll work that out in the future. Like, just by the fact that you are not willing to answer that and you can't answer it, you're unworthy to do your project. Because someone asked me to draw a painting of them, I say, yeah, of course. When you want it, 2 weeks from now, a week from now, and it says, oh yeah, Robert, where's your proof that I've done that? Oh yeah, just right behind me, right there.
There you go.
Right? Yeah, that's my proof. Hey, if you don't like that, then I'm not your guy. But if you like it, then I'm your guy.
Where has this mindset come from?
The hard truth, once again, is like the sad part about it is I think that a lot of us are just insecure. And once again, we haven't had that history of there's never been really a hard history of black people doing things on behalf of black people and living up to what they promise. And there's never been repercussions if they haven't lived up to what they promise. I can remember a guy coming into First Friday saying that, oh, we're going to make a center for black people, and there's going to be like, there's going to be a center for black people. We're going to have one place we're going to be having the music center. We're going to have like Aretha Franklin, all these other people come and perform. Then we're going to have the art center right beside it. And I'm looking at his drawing, and I'm going, the architectural drawing that he presented, I go, what the heck is that? Right? It looks like an episode of Star Trek. Clearly, I'm an untrained eye, right?
Yeah.
But clearly, he grabbed that picture off the internet, right?
That's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah,
that's so wrong.
And since I'm a graphic designer, like
exactly
his logo on one of the buildings, right? And I'm sitting there in the crowd. I'm going, oh, Robert, just shut up. Don't say nothing. Just shut up. Don't say nothing, right? And he kept on, and like I was just burning inside of me. And I go, look, guy, right? I go, how much money have you raised? Like, what have you done before, right? And once again, oh, don't hurt his feelings, right? But meanwhile, that guy's nowhere to be found now, right? And the idea didn't get off the ground at all, right?
And I wonder why.
Yeah, because and it was exposed that he didn't have really the skills to galvanize the black community because he had no experience doing so, right? So oftentimes, like, I told someone sometimes you don't have to try, running after some black organization and questioning them about it because they don't understand that they're exposing that there's certain faults that they have that will come into fruition. They're not the first young black person on the scene that the community believes in so highly to accomplish great things, only to fall prey to being on TV and everything like this, and they get all this attention, and consequently they fizzle out because their interest is just being on TV. Well, they have nothing.
Symbolism again. I get back to the symbolism thing all over again.
Yeah, they have the symbolism, but don't have something factual that they're offering the black community. So they'll talk about police violence or just be talking all the time, but they don't have anything that they're offering the black community, right? So at this point, really, after the pandemic, our resistance has to take the form of actual progress and something physical that you can hold on to, right? Like, we no longer can we just hope for promises, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the good thing, one of the positive things about the symbolism related to the Black Lives Matter Center is the fact that it can occur, right? But and there's the long hill of making sure that this lasts for 10, 15, 20 years, right? So consequently, that's really important that the people that are involved with a venture like that realize that that if you start it, you should be committed to it for the next 5 or 6 years, really, if you really want it to get off the ground. Right. And I don't think, and sometimes I don't think that people are thinking they have to be involved for that long period of time. But the only reason that you do is because history has shown that when Black people get involved with something, the only times that it's really gotten off the ground when certain people stick there for a long period of time.
Right.
Tropicana, people have stuck the executive director, the accountant, and about 3 or 4 of the staff were there for more than 20 years, right? The BPA, in many years, the current president has been there for like 4 years. The president before that was there for like 8 years. the other president before that was like 4 or 6, right? So the JCA, you go there now, and some of the people and so the seniors, they've been there for like 20 years and stuff like that. Yeah. Some of the people on the board have been there for umpteen years. So where do you see examples of in our community where people have just been there for two years and that organization or that entity has kept on going? The only example that I can know of is, I think it was the Canadian Urban Professionals, there's a Black coalition of urban professionals here in Toronto, and they pretty much will have had the greatest structure that I've seen in a Black organization, because the president, I don't know if it's changed, but the president could only serve for 2 years.
Yeah.
Then the vice president immediately becomes the president. There ain't no vote. There ain't no coup that can happen. Right?
Oh no!
Right?
Oh no! Don't start with coups. Go on, please.
Next,
no
please. Coup that can happen. If you're the vice president, you're becoming president. Period. Right? And then it just continues like that. Right? So, and the beauty of that model that they have is that the vice president has to prove that they're presidential. Right? By the time they have 2 years to prove that they're presidential before they become president. And the person that wants to become president has to wait to become president. So if they're the treasurer, they have to prove that they can become president within 4 years at the very least, right? Wow. So it prevents these type of like impulse. Oh, no one's here that wants to be president. I'll become president. I'm Black.
Which never happens. Those things never happen,
no,
right?
I can name 3 times it's happened in the last year and a half, right? Yeah, but with the urban professionals, I would give it to them. I haven't been involved with them for several years, but
is that the urban financial professionals or urban professionals?
I always forget their
because is that the Canadian Association of Urban Professional Firefighters? That yes, and is it Merrill Africa? Who's the head of that? Yes, that organization's run tight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And once again, going back to what I said, my critical elements is that they don't talk about what they're doing; they just do it. Right?
Exactly.
They don't have no press conference. They don't have no announcement. They just do it, right? And so then I give it up to them this very day, right? And that's something that we should all do.
Well, folks, as you see, Robert and I could go on for hours and hours, but we're not going to keep you on for hours and hours.
I
But
know.
so, as we wind it down, my man, what are you excited about going forward? What's the future looking like for yourself, legacy, etc.?
Well, the future is really looking good. You know, the bottom line is that this week even I have a piece of my artwork on the cover of Caribbean Camera, which
Nice.
here in Toronto, which is really great. People can look on my Instagram and see that image there. With respect to my poster and everything like that, I'm priming up for next year, and it's going to be focusing on futurism, Afrofuturism. You know, given that we're coming out of the pandemic, I think it's really important that we focus on certain issues in the future, such as food insecurity, home ownership. So I'm getting people on the poster that are going to represent that. The other thing I'm working on is an app, which is going to take place more aligned towards trivia on Black history. So I'm lining that up for next February. And that's something that I got my students that were working for me for the summer to work on. And what else?
Yeah. NFT.
Yeah, well, that's something that I'm going to be working on. So I have to really be researching that. You know, so that's my own retirement savings plan.
There you go. There you go.
Just in case this poster thing don't work out, right?
Well, we think it's been working quite well, and I think the best is still yet to come in regards to that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and next year will be my 28th year doing this.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, and it's funny because I think about like the amount of things that have been happening in the Black community that have been going on for 28 years, and it's really a small, real small, right?
Very like AXA is the only thing I know that's been going on for that long. Or there's some other organizations, but you are in rare air, my brother. Rare air.
Yeah. You know, so I always have these images of myself being. So now going 50 years doing this poster is actually in play, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, that's going to happen. If it isn't you, it's going to be through you. No, that's a done deal. That's a done deal. It's going to go. I'm thinking 100 years, not 50 years, man.
Yeah, there's a part of me that's wondering if that would be honorable to do or pathetic. You know, and I just say that because, like, you know, like I always feel, I say that jokingly, because I know this will be honorable, especially doing it for 50 years. Because I have kids coming up to me who are like 20 years, I shouldn't say kids, but they're like 20, 25 years old. And they come up to me saying that, hey, Mr. Small, my mother or my grandmother used to get your poster every year and tell us who was on the poster each year to talk to us about history. You know, I've had like 7-year-olds like grabbing my leg and hugging it and stuff like that. So it's been a really, really inspiring ride doing this poster. So there's no reason for me to stop doing it at all. And when I have my own daughter, like, you know, pondering the days when she keeps on doing it, like that's inspiring too. Do you think that you could stop doing something and your daughter or son or whichever continues it along afterwards, and then it really becomes a legacy because somebody else took it on, right? So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, thank you for all you have done, are doing, and of course will be doing going forward. I thank you for being our special guest on Emancipation Day, and Florence saying thank you. Community is unity for everyone. Open minds and open hearts. Keep the conversations and actions happening. Ashe. Agreed 100% on that. Exactly. Robert, we will be in touch. Thank you very, very much. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020. Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I host the only online show for fathers and dads in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central. And I am the board chair of the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. I'd like to thank everyone who watched this live, watching the replay, or listening to it via replay. Also like to say in closing out, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourself grace. Thank you so much to BIA Media, and to everyone out there, never settle. Bye, everybody.